Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're happy that you're here on a Friday. I'd love to introduce our Associate Vice Chancellor for University Life, Opportunity Programs, and Student Advocate, Cheryl Hamilton.
Thank you so much, Jen, and good afternoon, everyone. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to today's webinar. We are really delighted today that we have two experts who will give a brief presentation on supporting students who are experiencing housing insecurity and homelessness. One of these presenters I've had the privilege of working with for well over a decade.
Oh, God.
Well over a decade. And the other presenter, I have the honor of having as part of my team here at System, and we've worked together for a little bit over a year. So our first presenter is Wayne Harris. Wayne Harris is the Senior Director for Students in Temporary Housing and Foster Care in the Office of Community Schools for the New York City Department of Education. And so just a little bit about Wayne. Wayne has spent many years working with students who are criminal justice involved and assigned to substance abuse programs in alternative schools and programs. He's also served as a transition coordinator in various secondary opportunity schools and as a social worker with the Good Shepherd Services. He's even served as part of the inaugural group of parent coordinators in the middle school that he attended as a Brooklyn youth. All of this has prepared Wayne to do the mighty work of empowering young people who are experiencing homelessness and who had foster care experiences. Wayne really leans into one of the former New York City Chancellor's pillars, which was developing people, as Wayne enjoys developing and training his staff and providing skills to increase efficiency and competence. Wayne has been known to advocate relentlessly for the students and parents he encounters. I can attest to that as somebody who has worked with him for many years. Wayne can usually be found on Saturdays, splitting his time between supporting homeless and foster care students who are in high school and attending the program he created in 2007 called SIMBA, Safe in My Brother's Arm, and Asset, All Sisters Evolving Together, or supporting our newly arrived migrant adults residing in area homeless shelters with English learning classes. But Wayne is most proud of his work as a violence interrupter in the Brooklyn housing development where he was birthed. These activities are laser focused on decreasing gun violence in target catchment areas. Wayne Harris, thank you so much for joining us. I'll also present Gillian Kiernan. Gillian serves as the Associate for Student Support in the Office of University Life at SUNY System Administration. Gillian supports SUNY's basic needs initiatives, including addressing food insecurity, housing insecurity, transportation initiatives, and supporting student parents. She's passionate about helping others, having a background in community nutrition as well as in supporting low-income populations through education and outreach. She's pursuing her master's degree in business administration at the University of Albany with a focus on nonprofits and new ventures. Gillian is a rising star at SUNY System Administration. I present to you Wayne and Gillian.
Thank you, Cheryl. And happy Friday, everybody. Thank you so much for taking your time this afternoon to spend your lunch hour with us. Wayne and I are going to go over some data regarding students involving homelessness and some really success stories that have come out of the great work that some of these liaisons have been doing. If anybody knows me, I kind of always like to start off with a little bit of a story. So this is a real Reddit post that I found from a student pursuing their education at a community college who asked on a Reddit thread, are there any students that are homeless or living out of their car? So I am a community college student, so there are fewer resources available to us students, including housing options. I'm about to lose my only parent to cancer. Honestly, I just can't bring myself to work full-time to barely make rent. A 300-foot studio around here costs $2,000. Rather than take on debt, I'm considering living out of my car. I know a lot of you students want to be comfortable, but my main goal is to be debt-free. I'd rather struggle during college than make loan payments after college. Are any students here that are currently living out of their car? If you're one, could you please share your struggles or day-to-day challenges? If you spend all your time at school and work, then does homelessness just affect you when it comes to after hours, such as sleeping, cooking, or laundry? So unfortunately, this is a real life situation that students are facing on an ever rising basis nowadays. There were some comments in response to this post where they were claiming, why can't you get a roommate? Why can't you rent a room inside the house? So the person made a follow-up saying, yes, I could get roommates or rent a room inside a home. Those both start at $1,500 and are usually around $1,700. I'd rather give up comfort than working and stressing all the time about rent each month. That's $1,700 that could be saved or invested each month. I'm not here asking for solutions. I'm asking to hear from those that have done or have been here before. And so someone had a really great follow-up to that about their own personal experiences with it. So first, I'm so sorry to hear about your parent. I know this news must be deeply upsetting and takes up a lot of your brain space and time. I hope you have friends/family members to talk to as your parent transitions to the next life. Again, I'm so sorry. As for living in my car, I had a sedan. I paid for a storage unit. Paying for the unit is what usually really helped me. I'm 6'1" and needed a lot of room in my car to sleep comfortably. I used a Coleman stove for cooking and a Yeti cooler for food storage. I also camped at state parks as much as I could. I did this because they have laundry and shower facilities, and it was nice to be able to stretch out in a tent. The winter months were the hardest for me. Keeping warm with the car off is difficult. I use a Kielty Cantina 330 sleeping bag and a Rumple blanket. I use my gym membership, Planet Fitness, for showers when not camping, and I frequented McDonald's or Starbucks for internet access. I kept my closet to a minimum. I had 3 pairs of joggers, black, gray, burgundy, 1 pair of jeans, dark wash, 7 shirts, 2 black, 2 white, 1 gray, 2 flannel, 14 pairs of socks, 14 pairs of underwear that all fit in a duffel bag in my trunk. Finding places to sleep for the night was fine. I just slept in Walmart's parking lot. I was never asked to move. I had reflected shades on all windows, which kept the sun out. Car maintenance is extremely important. You got to keep up with it, or you'll, I'm not going to say that. Either way, I think it's a terrible situation. Car living is doable, but surely not ideal. I lived in my car all of my senior year. I was miserable, but I wasn't happy, which really sucked because I was senior and didn't feel like it. I now own my home and have a fiance and a few dogs. It gets better, I assure you. So why bring this up? So recent data that has recently come out between 2023 and 2024 from the Hope Center for Student Basic Needs had conducted a private study across 91 schools in 16 states to review new students' basic needs data. So what did this data show? It showed that 3 in 5 college students now are experiencing at least one basic needs insecurity, specifically relating to food and/or housing. Almost half of the students had experienced clinically significant symptoms of anxiety and/or depression. And specifically, they found that Black, Indigenous, LGBTQIA+, and parenting students face disproportionately high rates of food insecurity, housing insecurity, homelessness, and mental health related challenges. So overall, it showed that 44% of students face or experience depression and/or anxiety. 41% of students experience food insecurity. 48% of students experience housing insecurity. And of those 48%, 14 of them experienced homelessness. In addition to this, for the first time in 2023, the federal government was able to release data on homelessness as part of the post-secondary student AIDS study, which showed that 8% of undergraduate students and 5% of graduate students experienced homelessness. It also showed that 23% of graduates and 12% of graduate students experience food insecurity. So this is the first time that the government has been able to pull this data and really be able to show what this number looks like across the entire United States system in terms of basic needs insecurities. What does this effect have on students? Students are more likely to experience negative physical and mental health outcomes. They're more likely to experience gaps in their education, and they're also more likely not to persist post-secondary credentials and complete those. So what really is the federal definition of homelessness? I think this is a very common reoccurring topic that people are often asking is, what does it mean to be homeless? If I have someone come up to me and say that I am just sleeping on my friend's couch for the week because I can't go home, am I considered homeless? According to the federal government, homelessness is defined as individuals who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. So this can include shelters / transitional houses, hotels, motels, staying with others, and being unsheltered. So for shelters, this includes domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters, youth shelters, trailers that are provided by FEMA, housing that is paid for programs, transitional living facilities, hotels and motels. If you're staying in motels, hotels due to lack of adequate alternatives, regardless of who is paying for that hotel motel. Staying with others, so most commonly now known as couch surfing. So staying with others due to loss of housing, economic hardship, or similar reasons. And then unsheltered is including staying in cars, parks, public spaces, abandoned buildings, substandard housing, bus or train systems, or similar settings. And so it is a bit of a difference as to what FAFSA now considers a homeless student. So FAFSA now recently came out and expanded upon the category for students who might be experiencing housing insecurity. So for FAFSA, they're determined as an unaccompanied homeless youth and unaccompanied youth who are self-supporting and at risk of homelessness are now considered independent students on the FAFSA. So what does this mean? An independent student is a student who reports their own information on FAFSA and whose financial aid package is determined solely based on their income and assets. An unaccompanied homeless youth is a student who is under the age of 24 who is experiencing homelessness and who is not under the physical custody of a parent or guardian. There are students who might be self-supporting, so a student who pays for their own living expenses, so that includes fixed, regular, and adequate housing. Or a student who might be at risk of becoming homeless. So a student whose housing may cease to be fixed, regular, or adequate. So for example, a student who maybe has been evicted and unable to find housing. This also includes students who might have nowhere to stay when the student residence halls might close. So for break housing, so winter or summer housing, for example, or this might include students whose parents would allow them to return or would not allow them to return home. So now, what are some of the factors that a student might face in regards to experiencing homelessness? So some of the top 3 biggest ones that they have found is economic insecurity, lack of a parent or guardian, kicked out or ran away from home. So economic insecurity. So that is typically students who are facing homelessness who might not actually be able to take advantage of the full federal financial aid package as if they were unable to provide information about their parents or guardians and don't have full independent status. So that is a bit of a tricky situation. And we can recognize that that might be a bit of a tricky situation, but now hopefully with this new guidance from the federal government, students will be able to access that full federal financial aid package. Lack of parent or guardian. So these are typically students who might have grown up in the foster care system. Foster care students may face significant changes when it comes to aging out, especially in securing safe and permanent housing, or kicked out and ran away. So the National Runaway Safe Line reports that every year between 1.6 and 2.8 million students run away from their home. These reasons do vary, of course, but most common reasons for running away include abuse, conflict with the pregnancy, and pregnancy. They have also been able to identify that 40% of homeless youth identify as LGBTQIA+. Additional potential barriers that come up from it, aside from stopgaps in their education, securing year-round housing. This is a very tricky thing that is becoming more and more common, unfortunately, due to lack of available housing off campus. There is gaining a job to supplement their financial aid packages. So even if a student might qualify for work study, the income that they are receiving from work study might not be enough to help cover the rest of their expenses, or they might be choosing not to take on an additional job outside of campus or outside of their education because they feel as if they do not have the time in order to do so. Time poverty is one of the most ongoing data information at the moment that we are currently looking at to see how much time in a way is removed from a student's education because they are unable to focus on their education due to outside resources. Reliable transportation, that's a huge one. So if a student's bus is late, or if for some reason the bus is canceled that day and they can't make it to school or they can't make it to their job, or if they miss the bus even by 5 minutes, that could mean that they're trying to walk to their job. They might have to be calling an Uber. The economic hardship that could be placed on them for having to take those kind of services might be difficult, and academic support. So ways that we're trying to help with that. So in 2023, SUNY established the SUNY Homeless Liaison Learning Network. So the role of our SUNY homeless liaisons is to serve as a touch point for students struggling with housing insecurity or homelessness, connect them with available resources, and follow them to ensure they are on track to their academics. So every SUNY campus established in 2023 their own liaison. This link at the bottom here that we can share with you is your campus homeless liaison. So if for some reason you aren't aware of that person on your campus, this link will be able to tell you exactly who is present on your campus that can help them out with. The homeless liaison is there to provide referrals to on and off-campus resources for each student that might be eligible, at minimum to help ensure they have a safe place to live and sleep and enough food to meet their nutritional needs. So some ways that your campus might be already providing those resources. The first one is typically an on-campus food pantry. So every single SUNY campus has a food pantry that is either on campus or partnered very close nearby with. Our on-campus food pantries are stocked with a variety of non-perishable foods, frozen foods, fresh produce, personal items, and toiletries. Each campus's rules and regulations do vary. So your campus food pantry might have different hours from another campus food pantry, but is a great tool and a great way for students to access resources in between classes and to help bridge a little bit of that gap for food insecurity. Your campus might be offering a clothing closet. So clothing closets can offer free professional clothing to students. Some campus clothing closets expand past that to provide additional items. So jackets, coats, children's clothing, anything of that variety. You might also have access to student emergency funds. So student emergency funds support students who experience an unforeseen financial hardship or emergency so they can help stay on track toward graduation. These emergencies do vary. And again, each campus does have their own definition for who qualifies for emergency funds. But some of these examples might be an apartment or a house fire, a parent or guardian becoming seriously ill, a parent or guardian losing their job, or potentially medical bills not covered by insurance. And finally, one of the biggest ones that I think can be a really big help for people who are trying to reach out to students and just understand what kind of supports are available is a basic needs syllabi statement. So basic needs syllabi statements are tools for students to access information about what basic needs resources are available on or around their campuses. This is a voluntary statement that faculty can include each semester, just going over what resources are available. Additionally, other resources that students might be able to access who are experiencing housing insecurity. The most common one is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP. Some folks might recognize that as food stamps, as it was previously called. Students who are experiencing housingness or homelessness can qualify for Medicaid. In some situations, they might be able to also qualify for the Child Health Plus instead, depending on the student's age, or potentially even Section 8 housing. So these are all resources that the SUNY homeless liaisons can help identify students who are experiencing housing insecurity with, can help talk them through a little bit of the process and what this means to help get students enrolled in those programs, and ways that they can continue utilizing that during their time on campus. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Wayne. Wayne has a great expansive experience working in this kind of roles, and he's going to be able to share now some of the best practices he's learned from this, what part of his job role does in terms of supporting students experiencing homelessness. And then we have a fun video to show just a kind of the success of this all.
Thank you, Gillian. So I have the honor and the pleasure of supporting students who are experiencing homeless and foster care. My students remind me of the very reason why I came to do this work. Sometimes we forget about why we came to do this work. With all the mandates, all the deadlines, all the policy, it's very easy to forget about that original, that joy, why many chose to come enter this career, which is not a lucrative one. I mean, if there's anybody who decided to work with young people because you were going to be rich, you're going to make a lot of money, please let me know. But we are those dreamers. We are those individuals who decided to do this work because we wanted to make a difference, and we wanted to touch lives. We wanted to mentor. We wanted to be there for young people. We wanted to provide some of the things that maybe were not provided in our lives. So I have the honor of being able to do that for the past 20 years. And no 2 days are the same. And it gives me real authentic joy, and which a lot of times is missing from our careers and from our jobs. But as a senior director for students in temporary housing, I work out of the Office of Community Supports and Wellness with New York City Public Schools. This is the division in New York City Public Schools that handles most of the non-instructional areas, such as the Office of School Wellness Programs to make sure kids are moving, and they have gym and recreational opportunities. We have the Office of Attendance Research and Innovation. Chronic absenteeism has been a phenomenon that's running throughout this country. And our attendance office is really working to reduce the amount of chronic absenteeism, which, by the way, students who are experiencing homelessness have a higher likelihood of being chronically absent, missing 10% or more of their instructional moments during the school day. Social, emotional, and academic development, great office on our team that make sure that we're using trauma-informed practices when we're working with vulnerable populations, that we're increasing the empathy of the teachers and those who come in contact with vulnerable populations, not just homeless students, children in foster care, children who are at risk of homeless, children that are on the margins, who are there and have experienced trauma. It requires a different touch, because you simply cannot instruct a child out of his conditions. It requires a certain level of empathy. So my office takes care of all those non-instructional items that create healthy instructional moments. Yes, I'm talking about New York City Public Schools. And it's a joy and honor to be a part of that team. Next slide. Next slide. So I don't start any of my conversations without having talking about this great man, Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi. You guys know about Gandhi, the great Gandhi. He was the leader, the innovator, the originator of the nonviolence passive resistance movement. Um, in fact, Dr. King and several of our civil rights activists studied Gandhi and utilized his approaches, which led to many successes during the civil rights movement. But Gandhi said, a true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. And I share this with superintendents. I share this with principals. I share this with senior leadership to bring them down a couple of notches and just to remind them that the true measure of your school, the true measure of your district, the true measure of your superintendency is not how you treat the kids who's going to graduate anyway. You know, the true measure is how you treat the most vulnerable student in our buildings, the most vulnerable students in our districts. That's where the character lives. That's how you really should be measured. And so I like to remind folks that because it's very easy to forget about the most vulnerable. A lot of times schools and districts will give you data on their larger successes. Oh, we got an 85% four-year graduation rate. But if you look at the subgroups, you know, students who are homeless, students who are experiencing foster care, students who have histories of IEPs or special education, you'll notice that those four-year graduation rates, using that as an example, is significantly lower than that larger glossy data that they reported. So it's really important to look at the most vulnerable members of society, and that's how we are judged. Next slide. So let's talk about homelessness. Keep clicking. Let's talk about homelessness in New York City. One more. So New York City, when Gillian was talking about the categories of homelessness, she spoke about one of the category, living with others. We call that the doubled up population. Anytime like one family uh, decides to merge families with another family to avoid going into shelter, or because they don't have any permanent nighttime residence of their own, that's called the doubled up. That's called being doubled up. And that's the highest amount of homeless students that we have in New York City. And one of the traumas that causes and how that interferes with education is that, it's a space issue. It's sharing space. It's the uncertainty of staying in that doubled up situation. Because we notice that double up families who are doubled up, they're like usually walking on eggshells because at any time they can be asked to leave. So the double up population, and we have 60,000 homeless students who meet the categorization of being doubled up. 40,000 of them are in shelter, whether in the Department of Homeless Service shelters, domestic violence shelters. We have around 3,700 who are in the other category, and those are the usually unhoused students. They're living in a car, like was described. They're in squatting in an abandoned apartment. They're in a campsite. That's the other category. And we really prioritize those children and families for support. We have 566 that are in hotels. So we have over 106,000 students who are homeless needs, experiencing homelessness in New York City public schools. That makes up around 13% of our entire population. 40% of all homeless students are chronically absent. 54% of the students in shelter are chronically absent, while only 25% of our permanently housed students. So our students who are homeless come to school a lot less. And just think about the students who have IEPs, where their related services, their counseling, their physical therapy, their occupational therapy, all of that stuff is provided in school. So if they're missing school almost 20 percentage points more than permanently housed students, they're also missing some very basic and vital services designed to help them function. Next slide. So this is our org chart in our office. We have an executive director. We have a vacancy there. We're interviewing now, by the way. We have an executive director who is the mission guru for our unit. We have this Senior Foster Care Director. That's me all the way to the left. We have a Director of Interagency Collaboration. We have Directors of Regional Support. We have 3. Director of Clinical Services Support, who also supports the foster care team, so around 10 members. We have 14 regional managers. They're the most important folks because they support all of our field staff. We have around 100 community coordinators that are working in shelters and in schools. We have 100 Bridging the Gap social workers, and these are ST8, Students in Temporary Housing staff specifically. They are working in schools that have historically high amounts of homeless students. So the Bridging the Gap social workers are addressing the issues related to trauma for those students. They provide individual counseling that's specific to what they experience as being homeless, and a whole bunch of interventions and supports. We have family assistants. We have Department of Education staff that work inside shelters, and their job is to greet the family when they come into the homeless shelter, let them know about their rights, which is they have a lot of rights. They're guaranteed under the McKinney-Vento law. Some of the rights include, which is different than everybody else, that they have a right to stay in the school that they were in before becoming homeless, because we want that continuity. And the family has a right to transportation, which can be a yellow bus or a Metro card, to keep that child in that school regardless to where they live. If they choose not to do that and want to transfer to a school closest to the shelter, well, we support them with that. We also support regular school attendance. We monitor attendance. We help meet some of the needs that might cause a child to miss school. And we make sure that the parents are still involved in all the multiple entry points, whether it's 3K application, pre-K application, kindergarten application, middle school application. Because if a family is homeless and their primary goal is to find permanency, there's a tendency that they miss those opportunities because that's not a priority right now. And they usually will defer to being assigned, have their children assigned schools by default, by not being involved. And that usually results in a child being in the less desirable school. So we really encourage and support families to find their voice and exercise their choice, and be a part of all the application processes that are coming through while they're experiencing homelessness. Next slide. I spoke about some of these. So we also provide our shelter-based and school-based staff, who their job descriptions say that they are to work exclusively with the homeless student population. What we do is provide educational case management. We provide a level of advocacy. The school-based staff will make sure that the homeless students in the school are participating in all the activities that are available during the school day. Homeless students develop some compensatory strategies where they really try to hide. They're really invested in not being noticed. So they won't be the ones who's raising their hand to volunteer to participate in a leadership activity or a civic activity. Or they will try to not attend trips because they don't want the burden of asking their parent to pay a fee. Or there might be some special activity that they feel that they can't participate in. So our staff in the schools are navigating all of that, supporting them with transportation. A lot of our emphasis is on monitoring the attendance. We provide mentoring. We build relationships. You're going to see an example of some mentoring. Each school has an allocation. Each New York City public school receives an allocation of money to exclusively support homeless students. So we work with schools to make sure that they're assessing the need and that they are scheduling and executing spending to meet the needs of those homeless students. The name of that funding source is called STH Title I funds. And New York City receives over $115 million to exclusively support the needs of homeless students. And it provides everything from uniforms, emergency clothes, emergency food, eyeglasses, tutoring, attendance interventions, and support. So we really work hard to make sure that those monies are spent as intended. We also encourage schools to engage parents using these funds. Parents experiencing homelessness have some very unique needs. They need a place to speak to other parents who are faced with similar issues. And what we found is that when parents with that background are being supported by other parents with the identical background, that's where the magic happens. As professionals, as adults, we can articulate and pontificate and give speeches till we blue in the face. But when they're supporting, when our young people and our parents are supporting each other, we get the outcomes that we all desire for them. Next slide. So we also receive opportunities to partner with our internal offices. We have a lot of offices. We have the multi-language learner office. We have the student pathways office that that are helping students graduate and explore college and career opportunities. And we also are able to contract with external partners. Uh, we're able to go into a contract. I do this as well. We have a contract with a partner that creates college and career readiness activities. One of the activities are college tours. We regularly are visiting a slew of SUNY and private colleges in New York during all the breaks from school. We also help with our applications, gather the elements of the application, help put the essays together. One thing about the essays have been like a really magical moment, helping students see the strengths of their homeless experience and helping them articulate that on paper is extremely therapeutic and is a game changer where they once saw this as a deficit and something that they worked really hard to hide. Uh, we able to work with them and they see this as an opportunity to lift it up and share with others as something that they've overcome or on the grounds to overcome. So that's another magical moment. So I talk a lot about magical moments. Next slide. I spoke about college tours. Our kids look forward to the college tours. Um, and the one thing we tried to create college experience, not just tours, not just looking at the buildings. For example, we'll work with either EOP or HEOP to create some class shadowing opportunities. We have one campus uh, uh, we had a professor create an opportunity for the students to go into the classroom with uh, and do a college an experiment, a science experiment. So it moved from being this tour where you're just looking at buildings to an experiential opportunity, which really made that tour live in their lives. They really were able to see them there when they have those type of activities. We make sure that they have swag, that they have the gear from each college that they visit, because that really makes it memorable for them, and it really helps them see themselves on campus. Here we visited SUNY Canton, we did Herkimer, we did SUNY Albany, and the bottom right, I think we were visiting a private school, Stage, up in Albany, during the bottom right. Next slide.
So this is going to be a video. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment to bring it up.
While you bring it up, being involved with our alumni, I spoke about magical moments. When our students graduate, they go off to college, they come back. We create opportunities for our alumni to be involved with our current students. Our alumni have lived in shelters, have been doubled up. A lot of times it's in the same shelters that our current students are residing. And when the alumni provides an example that they were able to overcome those obstacles, it really makes the opportunity and the possibilities live. So our alumni participate in trainings. When we do trainings to other educators, they don't. I don't get in front of teachers. I bring former students. I bring parents out to share about their background and their experiences, how they overcome them. So we really keep our alumni involved. And I think Gillian's going to bring up a video where we we had a reunion of our alumni, and we were able to check in and see how they're doing.
Thank you, Lalia.
You can't hear it.
I can try. I also have it up, Lalia, so I'm gonna try.
That always gets me clicking it, making the sound available. Currently, there are over 120,000 homeless students in grades pre-K through 12 in New York City. That's the size of some medium-sized cities across this country. SIMBA and ASET are two programs created by the New York City Department of Education's Student and Temporary Housing Unit. SIMBA is an acronym. It means Safe in My Brother's Arms. It's a Swahili word that means young lions. We feel that all of our young men have the characteristics of young lions, but they have the potential to be kings. ASET is a Kemetic word. It speaks to Queen Aset. And it's also an acronym that means All Sisters Evolving Together. The purpose of the first annual alumni reunion is to touch base with our former students. Because SIMBA and ASET have been in operation since 2007, 2008, respectively, many of the alumni don't know each other. So we wanted to bring all the alumni into the same space and connect them to each other. It also gives us an opportunity to see where the alumni are, what resources the alumni have come in contact with themselves. Also, their needs are ever evolving and ever changing. In order to really meet their needs, we need an influx of services.
ASET have done so much for me and opened up so much doors for me. I remember when I was younger, I used to tell my mom I wanted to be a Supreme Court Justice, and now I want to give back to my community. I'm studying culinary arts currently at Kingsborough Community College, and then get my master's in social work and give back to the girls just like me.
SIMBA has helped me to grow into the young, ambitious man that I am today. It has given me a home, a place to call family, a place to feel loved, wanted, and to feel like I belong. Honestly, without SIMBA, I would have not been able to overcome my obstacle of homelessness.
In order to help the students break the cycle of poverty, we provide a full range of support, ranging from after-school tutoring, Regents Prep, SAT Prep, youth development activities, life skills, mentoring, college tours, college application process. At its inception in 2007, the idea of SIMBA wasn't one that was initially well received.
The first day when we presented the idea of SIMBA, it was a one-page description. And I handed it to the guy, and this is all I heard. They said things like, that program is not sustainable. They said you can't have a program on a Saturday morning and expect young people coming out of 20, 25 different shelters, they're going to come to the program at a rate that makes the program successful. They said we couldn't do it. Every day that y'all got up and came on downtown to New York Tech, y'all proved that they were lies. That they were lies, and y'all did it.
I feel like ASET definitely made me proud of my story, made me feel more comfortable with the struggles that I've had and helped me overcome them and helped me gain sisters, lifelong sisters. I'm now a student at Howard University, and I've used the tools that were given to me as a younger girl in ASET.
SIMBA is just a platform. You can achieve anything
when you feel like you can be great, when you feel like people have your back and they're raising you up. So I owe everything to Simba.
Yay. Okay. So needless to say, and I always tell the young people, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your success. It's an amazing ride. It's an amazing journey. Creating a space with the unconditional positive regard really builds the trust and allows them to share whatever barriers they're dealing with. And it puts you in a position to really support them effectively deal with those barriers. Many of them, there's hundreds of them. And I'm a social worker. It's interestingly enough, so many of them have went on to a career in social work. I don't know where they get that from, but we have some that are working in New York City public schools now. They're all over. Many of them, when they go away to college, I have a lot that have moved to Albany, and they're doing well in Albany. Um, but it's a great opportunity to revisit that original purpose and reason why you came to do this work. So if there's any questions, I think I could take questions.
Yeah, we have about 12 minutes now, and that was the end of my slides. I do have some resources that I can put in the chat of just additional ways of supporting homeless students. So while I copy those, if anybody has any questions, we can get started.
Gillian, I do see one in the chat, and then people can either add additional ones. Whoop, I lost it. Maureen is asking, does SUNY have dedicated ample long-term funding to support hostless students?
So at this time, our SUNY Homeless Liaisons is an unfunded position, but we are constantly looking for potential grant opportunities and ways of expanding out that opportunity. We would love to be able to provide funding for these populations to help establish any means necessary. Schoolhouse Connection does offer a really, really great scholarship program for college students facing homelessness that I can also put in the chat. I can just pull that up in just a moment, but at this time, no, we don't have any available, but yes, we are continuously looking for it.
Great. And then I did find one other one. Wendy asked really early, is there a criteria besides homelessness, in quotes, that students need to have in order to receive student emergency funds? I'm just wondering because we had a student who could not utilize these funds and he was homeless living out of his car. And someone replied that it varies, and that might be kind of what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, so unfortunately, campuses decide, or not unfortunately, I should say, but campuses decide what their criteria are for the student emergency fund. So each campus has their own set for it, and what those funds can be used for. Sometimes students feel shameful to have to disclose some of this information. So at the time, they might have felt like they couldn't share their full story when applying for the emergency fund. And so I would just recommend for the student to potentially go back and re-explain the situation and see if they're able to access that again.
If folks want to raise their hand or come off mute if you have another, we have time for a couple more questions.
I can just jump in. I wanted to respond to one of the questions about funding. And I will say that students who are experiencing homelessness, who also have foster care experience, students who have been in foster care anytime after their 14th birthday, are eligible for assistance with housing and other living costs through our Foster Youth College Success Initiative. We'll have a presentation on that at a later date, but I just wanted to make sure folks were aware of that additional source of funding for students.
I have a question. Hi, my name is Gillian from FIT. And my question is, if the college, the organization, educational organization wanted to reach out to the homeless community, the high school students who are about to graduate, what will be the easiest route? To contact their school counselors or to contact Wayne Harris or someone at the, who will be able to provide us with the most, I guess, list or without disclosing the information of a student, so the student wouldn't be embarrassed. So the college could reach out to them.
I think I heard your question to be, who should the student reach out to if they're experiencing homelessness? And
No. My question is, if the college wants to reach the student, right? But it's but only the homeless students, who will provide that information for the college? Will it be you or would it be the counselors at the high schools?
Yeah, it's the counselors at the high school. And I would, as you're reaching out to the counselors at the high school, feel free to copy me in that email, and I can encourage them to be responsive.
I just put in the chat too. So this is the list of the K through 12 McKinney-Vento liaisons. So they would be the ones who could potentially help you as well too with that specific school district. So I would recommend them, CC Wayne on that as well too, and also the high school counselors. And this goes by every single county and the multiple liaisons who might exist in that county. So for example, I have it up like for Erie, there's 2 at Orchard Park, or at Orchard Park School, and both their emails, names, and contact information are available on that list.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Are there any art programs for the senior high schools supported by you guys, but it's that are after school or outside of the school, that is specifically geared to the arts, the visual arts?
Okay, I didn't hear the question clearly. Was the question about after school programs in high schools?
Yes, but are there any after school programs that gear to art for the high school students?
So to get high school students involved in the after school program, I really try to empower my students. I give them a script, we role play. How would they inquire at the school about the availability of after school programs? So yes, the student, we should work with the student to ask the school about after school and even weekend opportunities. For homeless students, if there isn't one, they have the funding to start one. They just may not have assessed the need. They may have put out a survey and they haven't gotten responses that indicate that. But if we inquire, we can support that school with creating or finding an opportunity for that young person.
Thank you.
Well, we thank you both for a very informative session today. Really appreciate all the resources as well. Cheryl, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I just want to thank you for sharing such a wealth of information with all of us and some best practices. And we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you for the resources you've shared. And I want to remind folks that the recording will be available on the CPD website, so that if folks want to go back and take a look at the presentation again, or direct some of your colleagues to it, it's such valuable information.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.